Today we're going to be talking a little bit about the periodic table, how it's set up, and how they came up with the idea to put the elements into a table. So pretty short little activity today. So our learning goals are to be able to describe the periods and groups on the periodic table. So we're going to talk about some new vocabulary today. They're words that you know, but we're going to apply them to a new context. So our vocabulary is the periodic table, period, and group. So before we get into the periodic table, I want to just talk a little bit about the history of how it came to be. So if you remember from last week, we talked about Aristotle and how he had an idea that there were four elements that combined in different ways to make up everything that we know. And he disagreed with Democritus about the idea of an atom, and it really held back the study of elements for a long time. So after Aristotle, people really bought into that idea that everything was made up of earth, air, fire, and water, and combinations of those things. But over time, scientists started to discover that there were other things, other substances that could be made or derived from other compounds that had significant and very specific properties. And so it started to kind of be developed that there were certain things that you couldn't break down any further. And those are what we know today as elements, or at least the beginning of a list of elements. So after Aristotle came a lot of different scientists. So this is a long time between these two men, but eventually there's a man named Lavoisier, which is a very fun name to say. And he actually kind of developed the first modern chemistry textbook. So in his book, he had a list of all of these substances that they knew were kind of those base substances, the substances that you couldn't break down anymore. Now, during this time, there was a huge interest in something called the Philosopher's Stone, which a lot of you might think of as Harry Potter. It was also this whole field of chemistry known as alchemy, where they were trying to figure out how to turn regular objects into more valuable objects, namely gold. And so there's a huge interest in chemistry, trying to figure out how to come up with these different substances, which we know now today that you can't really do. But that was why there was such an interest in it, because they were trying to turn worthless substances into substances that were worth a lot more. So he had a list of elements, but they were in a book. So if you can imagine, if you were trying to figure out what a substance was and you have to look through a textbook to try to figure it out, it's just kind of cumbersome. So next along comes Dalton, which we've already talked about him as well. He did a lot of those experiments, remember, with compounds, and so he would combine things together and also take things apart again, and he would see the ratios that things combined, and that helped him figure out the atomic weights of different substances. And so he came up with this list of elements. You guys can look through this list and see there are some that are really familiar to you and some that probably aren't. Some that kind of started the current name that we now know as these elements. And you can see also that he has their weights listed on the side there too. So he had kind of the first list with some information, list in some order, if you will. All right, and then there are a lot of scientists between Dalton and Mendeleev. So this guy over here, his name looks like Mendeleev, but it's pronounced Mendeleev. Again, people were looking for a way to try to organize these, and they kept finding more and more elements. So as time went on, they kept finding more and more elements, and it just became more and more cumbersome to try to figure out the information. And so scientists started to see some trends. They started to see if you arrange the elements by mass, you put them in order, these properties start to repeat. So for instance, every eighth element, you get something that's a really explosive metal. Every 8 elements, you get a gas that doesn't do anything. And so these trends started to get scientists thinking that there must be some sort of repeating pattern. And the story goes that Mendeleev really liked playing the game solitaire. And if you know anything about solitaire, it's where you line up the suits of a deck of cards, but then also line them up by number. So there's 2 levels of organization, suits and numbers. And that's what Mendeleev tried to do with his elements. So he arranged them by atomic number, but then he also arranged them by properties. So they had organization vertically and they had organization horizontally, and that made them a table. And he wasn't the first person to put them into a table, but this is what his table looked like. So you can kind of see how it looks similar to ours today, but still significantly different than ours today. He had not all of the elements present, so they hadn't discovered everything by this point in time. So he had a lot, tougher time than we would have had today to figure this out. The thing, though, that really made people take notice that his table was really, really good is that he predicted unknown elements. So he would see that there's a blank spot on his table and he'd say, hey, I bet that something that is similar to the things around it is going to go there. So the example that I have here is gallium. Gallium is a metal that if you held it in your hand, the warmth of your hand would be enough to melt it. So you can see that happening here. It's close to aluminum on the periodic table, but it was unknown at the time of Mendeleev. But he predicted that in that spot that he didn't have anything, there would have to be a metal that's melting point would be about the temperature of your body. And he was right. And so people were like, whoa, this table is really important and really helpful because I can figure that out. So he kind of was taken really seriously because he made those predictions of the unknown elements. So he got to the point where he said properties repeat every 8 elements, and you can use the periodic table to figure out what's around, what the properties of things are around each element. All right, so here's our modern periodic table. So I just want to go through a couple of things we need to know for tomorrow on here. So first one, the vertical columns on the periodic table, these are called the groups on the periodic table. These things, the things that are in groups, are also called families because they have similar properties. So the one that's circled right now, these are all, except for hydrogen, explosive metals. So these are called the alkali metals, and if you mix them with water, they will all explode. The reason that they have similar properties is because they have the same number of valence electrons. And we're going to talk about this tomorrow or on Monday, but valence electrons are how many electrons you have on your outermost energy level. So the outside ring on a Bohr model, however many electrons you have on there, that's your number of valence electrons. So vertical columns are called groups or families. Horizontal rows are called periods. And the atomic number in a period increases by 1 from left to right. And the thing that's in common in a period is that all of these elements are going to be having the same number of energy levels. So if you drew them in a Bohr model, they would have the same number of rings. And then finally, we can divide the periodic table with something called the stair-step line. And I drew it as a red squiggly line right here. We'll draw it on our periodic tables on Monday, but it is the line that separates the metals from the non-metals on the periodic table. The only exception to this is hydrogen, but this red line separates the metals to the left from the non-metals to the right. So you can see that there are many more metals than there are non-metals. All right. Let's ask a few review questions and then we're done.